Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to voice my opposition to President Trump's announcement that the United States will resume explosive nuclear testing. Nevada was the focal point of nuclear development during the Cold War. Over 4 decades, the Nevada test site, which is located just 100 miles north of Las Vegas, hosted over 900 nuclear tests, more than any other place in the country. Throughout the 1950s, visible mushroom clouds often rose over the desert, could be seen in the distance by people who came to enjoy all Las Vegas had to offer. These tests were conducted to better understand the powers and effects of nuclear weapons, and the site played a major role in shaping national and international policies involving nuclear testing and nonproliferation. The radiation, however, given off by the more than 100 atmospheric tests had devastating impacts on those downwind. The fallout caused cancer and premature deaths for thousands across the Southwest. That's why earlier this year I introduced the PRESUME Act, which would ensure that radiation-exposed veterans would receive their rightful benefits from the VA who had been exposed to this radiation. In addition, the 800 underground tests sometimes vented, letting out radioactive contaminants into the air and the groundwater supply, and this is problems we are still dealing with today. Radioactivity levels in water are declining over time, but elements such as plutonium and uranium are likely to pose risks for thousands of years. You may remember in 2020, the first Trump administration called for a resumption of nuclear testing at the Nevada test site. This was in breach of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Back then, in response to that, I led a charge to the FY21 NDAA process to ensure that nuclear testing would not be resurrected in the U.S. But the more things change, the more they stay the same. Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. On October 29th, just this year, Trump announced that he's directing the Department of Defense to resume nuclear testing in a disastrous but not surprising policy reversal. This is because it's mentioned in Project 2025. On page 399 of Project 2025, which is the blueprint for the Trump administration, you see a call for a rejection of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. This would not only allow nuclear testing here at home, but will give a green light to countries around the world to resume and do the same. The result would put us on a collision course of catastrophic proportions with Russia and China. It would undermine the entire arms control regime, and it would allow proliferation of these weapons into non-nuclear states. At the same time, it would again put the health of Nevadans in jeopardy. In fact, we have already seen that Putin has directed his forces to prepare to resume nuclear testing, and just this week, the Washington Post reported that China is rapidly expanding and modernizing its infrastructure at the nuclear testing site in Zhejiang province. There's no technical, national security, or political reason for the U.S. to resume nuclear testing. At the test site, we already do groundbreaking experiments and simulations with our existing stockpile to make sure our arsenal is safe, secure, and reliable. All this is done without any explosion. It's a scientific experiment called subcritical, and it's far more helpful to understanding how the weapon will perform than setting off an explosion in the desert. Our leadership on arms control and nonproliferation has clearly come to an end, and the world is becoming a more dangerous place. Note, for the first time ever, the U.S. was the only country to vote no on a recent UN resolution supporting the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Not even North Korea voted no on this provision. So what kind of signal does that send? So amidst all this nuclear testing, saber rattling, the New START Treaty, which is the only remaining arms control agreement between the U.S. and Russia, is set to expire in just 77 days. So for these reasons, I've introduced the Renewing Efforts to Suspend Testing and Reinforce Arms Control Initiative now, the RESTRAIN Act. This would prohibit the resumption of nuclear testing. So I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting this and getting this passed before we begin another arms race. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. The chair recognizes